So I'm going to do some really generic, boring lip slurs. They could be boring unless I give myself some kind of foundation of time. So I'm going to put the metronome on, nothing too fast. Quarter note equals 120. There you go. It's the second times 2. The second hand going twice as fast. You could even, if you don't even need any of this stuff really. You just need your ears, and sometimes when I'm driving, I'll use the turn signals on. It gives me a pulse. I'll start thinking of a pulse there and subdividing there. You can use anything in life to come up with music. So there's a pulse. And since we're still, at least I was earlier on talking about A train, we're still working with this key of C. That's the chord in my head. And here's the root of it. So quick recap of what I just did. I took my mouthpiece, I played over the root of the first chord of A train, starting on the melody, the very first melody note, the 5th, and did some lip slurs around that, kept track of the time, even though it probably sounded like I was playing on different parts of the bar. Actually, I was doing that intentionally, rather than always starting everything on beat 1, which tends to happen when we are given books of music to practice. Everything looks like it starts on beat 1, and everything has to be starting from the root. So to really start challenging yourself, you can just use the music you're working on. What do I have to play in band tomorrow? What's my solo? Why don't I memorize it? Why don't I memorize those chords? So you can do that. Take the root, chromatically move it around, or even, in the case of A train, which is kind of cool, you could leave it on the C because it becomes part of the next chord. Just to really clarify that, here's the root of A train. The second chord goes up a whole step and becomes, for us on trumpet, the first chord D major 7, second chord becomes E, but the flat 7 works. It's still the same note that the drone is droning. So now you're challenging yourself to hear the next chord against that. Now this is maybe more advanced for some of you, and maybe it's something that you will really, some of you will get really inspired by. But for me, it's a great way to keep myself engaged in, wow, what does this note do when I change to the next exercise, next part of the exercise? Back to the first thing I did with the lip slurs. This is kind of fun. So I'll do it on piano so you can hear me. Here's the root. I bent down to the sharp 11. And at some points the lip slur becomes sonically part of the key you're in. Other times it's more tense. Sharp 11, going down to the major, back to the root, right? Now I'm really hearing the tune to the point where I don't even have to think about my fingers. Taking each bar, of course, apart and extracting how you can warm up over that, you will know your tune. So you can basically warm up over a tune. Using these tools, using some time, getting to the point where the metronome is just a reminder of the pulse. It's not the pulse or the time. It's the reminder of the subdivision that's inside of you. So I'm thinking even eighths, triplets, 16th notes, triplets, eighths, very even, and very kind of clear when it's time to play the trumpet rather than getting too expressive and adding dwees and does. Be very exact with those intervals. Use your mouthpiece, use your metronome, use some sound. If you don't have you don't have to have a Shruti box, there's actually an iPhone app for this if you want to get that, or you can use a piano. You can use a keyboard. You can do whatever you want. You could create a loop, in fact, of the first two chords of A Train back and forth on your computer and do your mouthpiece trumpet warm-up and feel fabulous when it's time to hit, because you're really hearing and really connecting with all parts of the chord, connecting with the instrument. Things are in tune. It's kind of magic the way it works if you do it right. If you internally get a pulse going and are really playing while you quote unquote practice, then it's just play.